Another conversations from my son, videos from my son, and imagine he's 18 to 20 years old, we're walking the dog and I'm giving him a deep well of wisdom. Just not a little, because I don't really have a deep well of wisdom, but I do have what I've experienced. So, some days he gets older, maybe he'll go back and watch these. And anyways, son, last time we were talking about the dark night of the soul, and I feel like most of my Christian life, I would say, has been in some form of night of the soul. I'd say it is rare that I walk in times and places where there's not been some sort of distance felt between God and I, whether it was on my side, just because I was walking away from Him, or not that I ever really left the faith, but there's things you could do to walk towards, and things you could do to walk away. Or whether even in the midst of my being what people would call devout and following practices such as daily prayer and reading of scripture, journaling, fasting, and worship, communal worship with other believers, partaking of the Lord's Supper, in the midst of all of those, serving, giving of self. There have been times where I still felt, I'm going to pause because the dog thinks we're done, but we're really just throwing the poop away. There you go. Just throw the poop away. See if we can get him to keep going, because it was a short little walk. He needs a longer walk. He's been stuck inside all day. Come on. Alright. So, back to experience. So, come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Are you experiencing dark night of the walk? Pluto, come. Come on. All right. Now he's the way to go. Okay. So most of my experience has been one of a dark night, and there's different feelings of that, different levels of that. It's not always the same. Sometimes it's more of a depressive spirit. Sometimes it's just a silent spirit. Sometimes it's an emptying spirit. Different types, different modes, different ways. Now there's spiritual dark nights of the soul, and then there's also clinical depression. There's also suicidal ideation, any of those things. And they're not all the same, although sometimes they are related. Son, if you're ever feeling suicidal, please reach out to me, your mom, medical professionals. Know that you are loved unconditionally, and the world is blessed. We are blessed. I don't know the rest of the world. Okay. Anyways. So a dark night can be related to a depressive state, but it doesn't have to be. like I was talking about before, my mother, and she could speak more into that, just if you have no questions on it. And she experienced a dark night, and she learned of her infertility and going through her medical things, and that was brought about not because of sin or bad things in her life, but because of she felt silence in the midst of her pain, and that brought about a dark night. Sometimes there's silence. Another seed book on that is Chaim Patak's The Chosen. Hopefully I'll recommend it to you before you get this old, but maybe not. And we have a copy in our library, so if you want to, your mom, when she finished it, hugged it to her chest. She'll tell you that story. She loves telling that one. But our faith is not about warm and fuzzies. There are woo moments. Those are amazing. For a long time, I never had a woo moment-ish. Going to college, God and I had some words one time. Actually, we've had lots of words. But one particular time, I was wrestling with some current issues, and current issues in my life, and I was deemed of that, and still coming to him, repenting, and seeking out ways to live as I was thinking he was wanting me to live. And lots of people had lots of warm fuzzies. I worked at summer camps. I've seen a lot of people have great spiritual and emotional experiences, and I never had them. They talk about coming from a summer camp, like a mountaintop high, being up at summer camp and experiencing all the fun things. And don't get me wrong, summer camp I'm working for summer camps were some of the most informative times in my life. They were the most formative times in my life, especially spiritually. But at the same time, I never had these mountaintop experiences where I was just emotionally and spiritually overwhelmed by the presence of God. It wasn't a thing I had experienced. And I got mad at God one day for that, because of the things I was going through, sadness I had experienced. Had a friend pass away, and began dealing with other issues of loneliness. And I was like, God, I was at my grandparents' house. I walked to the park, sitting under a tree, and was yelling at God. I probably looked like a crazy idiot. That's alright, probably was. Yelling at God. God, why? Why did you not even give me a glimpse, like even just the littlest bit? Just a little teeny bit. Other people who I've seen fall away from the faith, you've allowed them to experience these wonderful times, wonderful emotional highs, and yet I haven't had anything. And so I got mad, and I didn't hear anything. So I went back after a long time with anger and tears and yelling. Went back, and I had a lot of spiritual books on my desk in my grandparents' house. Only one non-spiritual one is fiction, about these bad guys who are having to be good guys for a weird plot twist reason in the book story. And anyways, this was the first book I ever reread opening the Bible. And I'd gotten it from Grandma and Grandpa Susie's house and Pepper Powell's house. And I had started rereading it there as I was visiting them. And so I just had brought it with me. And it was at the only part in the book, and I didn't know this. I opened it up and started reading that instead, where I had left off. And it was at the only part in the book that had really anything to do with the spiritual discussion. And the lady was being questioned by one of the good gods. There's multiple gods. And the god's like, why are you doing this? Like, can't you see that this probably isn't, that it's not the right way? And eventually the character said, I have faith. I just have faith. And that was it. That was the end of the chapter. and like, you know, there was a little woo moment. And it wasn't like a big shouting. It wasn't like he still didn't speak. He was still silent. And I still didn't hear from him. I still didn't have big emotional experiences for a long, long time. I've only had really one or two in my whole life. I've heard, felt presence of God, and maybe I'll talk about those, my woo moments. Maybe that may be a woo video. All this to say, you could walk by faith in the midst of a dark night. Our faith is not contingent upon hearing God. In fact, Jesus says, "This are those who have not heard and have not seen, but still believe." Blessed are those who have not heard, have not seen, but still believe. Don't lose faith in those dark nights. Keep going to Him. I know you're, as a boy, you love your emotions. You wear your emotions on your heart sleeve, and you feel things really strongly. That doesn't have to determine your faith. Experience those emotions. They tell you stuff. I'm not going to tell you they're fake. They're real, but they're not everything. They're not everything. Sorry, this is a longer video. I'll get done with it soon. Trying to think of the authors that helped me through in these dark nights. You know, some people, this guy has a bad name. Brennan Manning in these times. And he talks so eloquently of experiencing the presence of God, but he still struggled with his demons and his bad things as well. So as you read him, read it as aspirational, not as that's what everybody's experiencing. John Bonet was reading at the time too, probably. Dallas Willard. There's a person that actually wrote a book, Dark Night of the Soul. I forget. And I read little excerpts from that, but I don't think I read the whole thing. In there, you're experiencing those times. Don't let go. Try to draw closer. Cry out more, even if He doesn't answer. Don't stop crying. idea that is written for you. So, love you, my son. Talk to you later.